1971 Camaro, rear end removal, and a little bit of hacking. Let's do it. Today's video is brought to you by the 2019 CamaroCon event t-shirt. Check out the link below and see if we have your size in stock today. What's going on, guys? Matt over here with Lethal Garage, and today we are gonna rip out the rear suspension on my 71 Camaro. Now, there's a few things to caveat here because my car's completely stripped and we're not really reusing a lot of stuff. We're gonna be chopping off the e-brake. We're gonna be cutting the fuel line or the brake lines and anything else that's in the way. We're just hacking it up because we are doing full Detroit speed replacement for the rear, so we don't care about the old stuff. We are gonna be keeping the same housing, the same rear end. We're gonna rebuild that with all new parts and pieces, so we'll get to that in another video, but today is all about ripping it all out and getting it cleaned up. So let's do that. First thing first, again, this car is has subframes, and really the whole rear frame is the rear axle and the leaf springs. So what we're going to be doing is just disconnecting these and pulling them off from the car. So the bushings up here are pretty destroyed, but all of this is coming out, the mounts, everything, because the new setup for the mini tubs is going to push all of this in about 3 inches on both sides. So, and you can see how pretty nasty and gummed up it is. There's obviously not a fuel tank in there right now, so we don't have to worry about pulling all of that stuff out. But the big thing is there is still some lines going into the differential we'll have to disconnect from the brake lines, and we'll just have to, I'll probably just end up cutting those out because we're doing all brand new brake lines for the vehicle. But we got to pull that out and clean it all up. So let's get the bolts removed, or at least let's get the car on jack stands and then get the bolts removed. Okay, so in this instance, I am not reusing any of the braking components whatsoever on this build. We're going to be redoing everything, so I have no idea what kind of fluid might still be in the lines at this point. So I'm going to pull this out and over, so that way when I cut these lines, it will all drain out into my pan and not make a giant mess. So at least I'm hoping these will cut. Yeah, that cut right through there. And looks like there's a little bit of fluid in there, but it's like, yeah, no, it's done. So no leakage there. That is the only connection point at this point I could see to the vehicle that we need to disconnect in this regards, in the state of this vehicle. But outside of that, it's all pretty straightforward. These lines have already been cut all up through the body of the vehicle, so it's, you know, fun little resto mod time, right? It's kind of ripping it all out and putting what we want back in place. And you can see how gunked up and nasty this whole rear end is. We're going to fully rebuild this rear end. We're not going to go with a different one, but we're going to pull it out and disassemble it and get it cleaned up and redone, and along with getting the whole underside of the vehicle media blasted and recoated and sealed. So that's all things that need to be done, but today it's getting this out, so let's finish that. Okay, so at this point we are underneath the passenger side of the car. We need to disconnect this rear bracket. Now, kind of skipping a step because my car doesn't have shocks, but at the midpoint there is a brace that your shock connects to. I don't have any shocks, so I can't show you that step because whoever worked on this car last took the shocks off already. So in this instance, we need a 15 mil. There's going to be a 3-bolt setup here. So first bolt here, I'm going to take these first 2 off and then gently undo the last one. I don't know how long it's been since these bolts have been touched. If they're seized or anything like that, we'll have to go through those steps, but usually some heat works out pretty good. Or man, they're dropping pretty easy. So these ones should be fine. Now this will be under a little tension, not enough to hurt you, but it will drop it down. Now I haven't disconnected any aspect of the e-brake yet. There's a couple bolts there that we're going to get to here in a second. But yeah, this will just drop. And again, my car's fully suspended with the wheels off the ground right now. But I think really on this side, the e-brake is what's holding it in place at this point. But once the e-brake's disconnected, this will drop down. The tire should touch. It may even drop down with the other side. Or actually, I think it might be the jack that's keeping it from dropping. Because if you didn't notice, I do have the vehicle's diff on a jack right now, so that might be keeping it from going all the way down. We'll get a slightly different angle on the driver's side. Oh, where's that bolt? Okay. This is definitely a much different bolt on this side. This last one. There we go. And there is a metal tab right here on technically on both sides that it kind of slides in this main bracket in place. I'm gonna have to disconnect the e-brake line so you can see it hanging here. Previous owner did me a solid and made sure the e-brake was never going to work again, at least until we replace all the wiring and redo all of that. But you could see there is a, well, I'll bring the camera up here, but there is an e-brake line right here that protects the wire that goes down to the rear brakes. I'm hoping I can undo these bolts in here and undo these bolts under here, and this whole assembly will slide out. That's my hope. We'll find out if that's true. There was no easy way to cut that off. There was no way I was going to do that with hand tools, so I ended up using my cutting wheel because I'm going to buy new brake lines anyway, or e-brake lines anyway, so I just use a cutoff wheel. Sliced right through that, and now we're fully disconnected. So now in theory, if I drop the rear end, the tire should come all the way down. Unless they're caught on something. Oh, their tabs are still caught up front on the driver's side. Not anymore! Bam! There you go. So now we just got to disconnect the rear leaf springs. So at this point, I'm just going to disconnect the leaf spring. I should probably... Well, it's not going to fall. What am I thinking? I have to pull the bolt out for it to fall, but my camera mount is jankier than heck. Apologies. I can't even see if you could see this here, but we're going to remove this bolt, and with the rear end pulled back, you should be able to get a deep socket without bending the rear. And that should get the bolt right out. Now, the reason why you could do that is because this bolt here is a square head, goes into the shackle. So basically, we're going to pound that bolt out, drop the leaf spring down, and be able to disconnect that, and then we can get up there with hand tools and disconnect the shackle from its main connector. I think is basically the crash bar or equivalent of on this car, because on the new setup we're basically moving this whole thing over to like here. So, and that's going to give us the clearance on the inside of the vehicle to set stuff up. But disconnecting this will allow us on both sides to allow us to roll the whole rear end out and then disassemble the whole rear end. So let's go do that. So this bolt should be pretty easy to pop out. And you can see that's under no tension whatsoever. Now we can do that on the other side. Rear end disconnected. I didn't plan so well on rolling it out the backside of the car, but we got it out. And it's a lot heavier than I thought it was going to be. I thought I'd just be able to throw it on the slides, but that wasn't working for me either. So, as you can see, everything's disconnected. Now we can I guess we could take the leaf springs off first, and then from there we can go ahead and you know, that will help reduce the footprint. But from there we can probably take off the wheels, and actually no, we'll leave the wheels on it for now, because then I can at least push and roll it out and pressure wash, hopefully get some of this gunk off. I'll get some degreaser on it and then pressure wash this bad boy, see if we can get it looking somewhat decent again. It's kind of interesting to see that one bolt on both sides is missing. Well, let's try a different battery. Let's just go more power, period. 1/2 inch. Yeah, it worked. At this point, I have my molecule. I'm going to use that as my degreaser. This stuff works really good. And I'm just going to get a nice thick coat. And we're going to basically do one side at a time. And I'm just going to be pressure washing this whole thing. You can see it's already starting to break up a bit. But we're going to let that soak and we'll start brushing. So we're gonna start with a 40%, so it's not like eating through the metal, and just see how much junk comes off with just that. Okay, so with just the 40%, I mean, it took some of the easy stuff came off, but there's still a lot of grime on there. So I'm gonna recoat it with spray, let it soak some more, and I'm gonna go to a more high pressure nozzle and see if we can get this thing cleaner. Well, got the camera a little wet, but you can see I got a lot of the gunk off. We're starting to see metal here, which is great. Now we can get in there by hand and really just scrub the rest of it off on this side. So a lot of the buildup is falling off and looking better. So let's get some scuff pads and see if we can get that thing down to metal. So now at this point, it's the wonder of the scuff pads. As you can see, we're getting it pretty clean. Obviously, in this instance, we're gonna go down and have it media blasted. The only request they had was to get all the grease off. So a lot of this black stuff here is grease. I believe some of this is just paint, potentially, with grease. So I'm gonna go ahead and soak it with more degreaser, see if I can eat into it, pressure wash it again, see if I can get some more gunk off with the pressure washer, because the scuff pads, they work, but they're getting all gummed up by this junk. Who knows what it is. So it may be undercoat for all I know. But yeah, it's just the grind. So I'm gonna go ahead and coat this up and then work on it for a little bit while more, and then show you where we're at, so that way we're gonna basically leave off having this thing ready to be pulled apart. So yeah, so we'll be back. Well, I got everything cleaned up. I got about as clean as I'm gonna get it for today. I was gonna scrub it all down, but it's just taking way too long. I actually want to put a call out for you guys. If you guys have an idea on some degreaser, so you can see I got the metal pretty clean on the cap, on the cover I should say, but all this area, this is just grease. So it comes off. I tried using brake cleaner. Brake cleaner broke it up a little bit, but nothing as much as using brake cleaner and a scuff pad. If you guys know something that's stronger or can really eat through this, because it's super thick on the housing itself, let me know. Post down in the comments below, because everything I have in my arsenal right now just isn't cutting all the way through it without really putting in some elbow grease. I'm looking at something that will just eat it away. That being stated, again, the idea here is just to get as much grease off as we can, so that way we could take it down, have it media blasted and recoated. But basically I need to get it down as far as we can, so then we could disassemble, pull the axles out, pull the gears out, pull all that junk out, get all the wheels and the brakes pulled apart, and yeah, a lot to do. So that's it for today's video. We got the rear end pulled apart, got the leaf springs off. I feel like we got enough done today to feel like it's a success. Again, one day at a time, getting this thing together. It's been a while since I've really started getting at it, and I feel like today was a win. But overall, still a ton to do on the 71. Again, you guys knew this was going to be a long project, maybe not as long as already taken. Again, the hope is to get the car running by March, so that still gives us about, what, 5 months-ish. It's just now starting in November, so I think there's a chance. I think we can hack it all out. The Detroit Speed suspension stuff should show up mid next week. We're looking in the next week or two to start cutting out and getting the mini tubs in there. And once the mini tubs in, I'm gonna cut the rest of the roll cage out. That will be in the next video. Maybe we'll go over the mini tub kit and then cut out the rest of the roll cage in the next video. Tack that bad boy in. That will be a couple video series. There's a lot to be done there. And then Media Blast. So actually we'll do fitment. We're gonna fit all the interior parts. We'll get all the brackets and everything in place, make sure those go and the dash mounts up, make sure we have everything we need to make that happen. And then once that's done, it'll be Media Blast. Media Blast the bottom side, Media Blast the interior, the exterior, and then we're gonna put a coating along the bottom because we're just gonna Media Blast it and then basically follow up with an underbody coating so it's just ready to go. So that's the hope, that's the plan, that's where we're at. Let me know what you guys think of this build so far. Again, let me know if you guys know of any good degreasers I could use to really just get whatever that is on there. We have no idea what it is. It definitely looks like there was some dirt and stuff caked up. So my thought is maybe they pulled this off another car, maybe it's sitting in a junkyard in a pile of dirt, I don't know. So either or, it does look a heck of a lot better before and after pictures here. But yeah, 71's coming along, ton of more content coming. We kind of have a plan of attack, but there's just so much to do. It kind of feels overwhelming at this point, but it's just about checking off those check marks on the list. I need to remake a list. My old list is out of order, but that's it. Until next time, guys, hope to see you on the road.